Allow me to introduce myself. I represent the rent is too damn high party. People are working 8 hours a day and 40 hours a week to some a third job. Women can't afford to take care of their children, feed their children breakfast, lunch, and dinner. My main job is to provide a roof over your head, food on the table, and money in your pocket. This is politics as usual. Playing a silly game. It's not going to happen. The rent too damn high movement, the people I'm here to represent can't afford to pay their rent. They're being laid off right now as I speak. They can't eat breakfast, lunch, or dinner. Listen, someone's stomach, child's stomach just growled. Did you hear it? You gotta listen like me.
Okay,
let's talk about the issue. People can't afford to pay their rent.
30 seconds for you, sir.
Rent is too damn high.
Thank you.
The rent is too damn high. I agree. And what a great response from Cuomo. He's like, someone's actually talking about real issues that affect everyday working people. How do I react? The rent is still too damn high. That was a very long time ago. But an analysis published in Redfin shows that median rent in the United States surpassed $2,000 for the first time in May. This is median, not the mean. It's not like this is an average, and outliers of people who are paying tons of money in rent in downtown Manhattan are pulling this figure up. This is the median figures. That means taking everyone in the population, what their rent is, and taking the number that's in the very middle. This is a very high rent to be the median for the entire country. At $7.25 per hour, you would need to work 63 hours per week and give all of those wages to your landlord to pay rent to afford this. Do we exist just to work for other people, to pay our bills, to survive? This isn't a meaningful existence, just getting up and working every day to continue to have a home. It doesn't make sense. July's consumer price index showed rent inflation increased at a rate of 6.3% in the past year, which is the highest in 35 years. And it gets worse because in some cities, it's much higher than that. Rents are up 30 to 50% in some cities across the United States right now. And it's possible that it's even worse than these big figures show. The CPI's use of current lease costs instead of a market cost causes the CPI measure to lag behind broader rental and housing market trends by around 6 to 12 months. The CPI estimates shelter costs through a survey of renters who are asked about the cost of rent they currently pay. Because rental lease contracts tend to lock in rents for 6 to 12 months, this measure will 1, only slowly track current market trends, and 2, usually exhibit less volatility if rollover leases don't adjust fully to market rates. And there are all sorts of folks across the country who are very vocal about how this is affecting them. Tenant leader Vanessa Armour, who's with the Progressive Leadership Alliance of Nevada and Homes Guarantee, said, "I feel trapped. Am I going to spend the rest of my life scraping it all together while the government does nothing to help me? While the government is actually in the business of financing greedy landlords like mine?" And so to explore this, People's Action, a national network of community organizing groups, along with Data for Progress, investigated how everyday people feel about rent, and they focused in on voters. They wrote this in a report. We asked voters how concerned they are about the cost of renting a home or apartment. Nearly 2/3 of likely voters, 64%, report that they are either very concerned or somewhat concerned. Across partisanship, we find that 70% of Democrats, 63% of independents, and 58% of Republicans are concerned about the cost of renting a home or an apartment. And so that was voters overall. And when you break this down between those who are renters and those who are homeowners, it's still pretty damning. So among voters who say they are tenants, we find that 80% are concerned about the cost of renting a home or apartment, while 56% of voters who report they are homeowners are concerned. Groundwork Collaborative Director of Policy Research, Mike Mitchell, said, "Any strategy to bring down prices must include housing and affordability. Landlords and housing corporations are telling their investors they're ready to jack up rents as much as possible. If our policy fixes for inflation don't target the housing market, we risk falling to meet one of the most urgent needs of millions across the country." And so he's right about the solution for bringing prices down, needing to consider rents, because the current approach to curb inflation, as we've talked about a lot, of raising rates, is exacerbating the wealth inflation issue. So Tiffany Wielding with MarketWatch reported that when the Federal Reserve raises rates, as it has recently, rental inflation tends to rise in response, at least at first. This is because rising rates make owning a home less affordable, pushing would-be buyers into the rental market, which in turn further drives up rents. This is not to mention that about 30% of the homes on the market right now are going to investors, not going to home buyers who plan on living in those homes. And again, this is a problem of price gouging. Rents have outpaced inflation, suggesting that landlords are price gouging. In the midst of this crisis, rents rose over 14% year over year in June, much higher than the overall inflation rate of 9.1%. So what can we do about it? The folks at Homes Guarantee, led by Tara Raghuvir, published something for the administration and departments to look at. They have some recommendations for what kind of executive actions can be taken. They said President Biden must declare a state of emergency on housing and issue an executive order to essentially work with many tenants to work against the private rental market against unreasonable rent hikes. To convene a cabinet-level interagency task force with identifying avenues for longer-term collaboration to regulate rents and secure tenants' rights, and to provide a formal avenue for federal agencies to consult with tenant stakeholders, including tenants themselves. I think that's a great idea. I would love to see tenant leaders like Denise Brown, for example, from Kansas City Tenants, advising the Biden administration on what to do with the housing crisis. We need everyday people participating in our government. That's what democracy looks like to me. But I'm really glad we have Ana on to chat about this, because Ana loves talking about housing. What are your thoughts? I think you're muted, Ana.
Sorry about that.
There we go.
So a lot of thoughts. When you mentioned the idea of Joe Biden declaring an emergency surrounding housing, he's not gonna do it. I would be shocked if he did. And then I immediately thought about the fact that he had no problem implementing an executive order to prevent railroad workers from striking legally. Just a thought, like, see where his priorities are. But in terms of policy, you're right in regard to interest rates, making it more expensive for people to take out mortgages so they get further priced out of the market. But at the same time, there is the added benefit of the price of single family homes or townhouses, homes you can actually buy. The price comes down because if it's too expensive to borrow, well, then it limits the number of people who are able to buy those homes. And so for anyone who's been storing away cash, hoping to one day buy their home, it makes it a little easier to do that. And property taxes are also calculated based on the value of the home. So if the value of the home goes down, your property taxes are also gonna be lower. But that does also price some people out of the housing market in terms of wanting to, if they wanna buy property. And then they end up wanting to rent. And that increases the demand of individuals looking for rental properties, and there's limited supply. And so I want to address the issues with limited supply, because outside of the executive order that has been suggested for Joe Biden, I think there also needs to be some regulations pertaining to what type of buildings get built, right? Because we keep hearing about zoning laws, they're too restrictive, we need to loosen them. But if you drive around Los Angeles, for instance, and I know this is happening in a lot of other major cities, you will see quite a bit of construction. It's just that the construction is being done on massive developments that include either luxury condos or luxury apartment buildings that are astronomically priced. And then what they do is this annoying trick that I think some people on the left absolutely fall for, which is, it's mixed use. It's mixed use. There's gonna be affordable housing, baked into this. And then you read the terms and you find out that the number of affordable units is like 5%. And the rest of the building is either renting at market value or even above market value. So what I would wanna see is policy that prevents these major developers and these big corporations from taking advantage of those loosened zoning laws for their own profit motive and their own purposes, right? We need to ensure that whatever we do build actually increases the supply of affordable housing. And you would need a lot more involvement of, the public sector to make that happen. Aside from that, I would ban foreign investment in US real estate completely, at least for the time being. So if you're some oligarch in China or in any country, Saudi Arabia, for instance, not interested in you snatching up residential property to basically launder your money here in the United States. I would ban that on day one. It's insane to me that we haven't done that yet.
Yeah, I would totally see like raising interest rates as the policy solution if we weren't in this situation where large developers were controlling a third of the market and buying homes outright just so that they can rent them out, oftentimes as short-term rentals, which are much higher than regular long-term leases. And then you have the people who are actually looking for long-term leases paying this high price for rent. But when 30% of the market is controlled by these corporate investors, and you have corporations like Zillow coming in and purchasing 5 homes, they'll purchase 3 at like $200,000 and then purchase an additional 2 at $400,000, effectively increasing the price, the estimated value of the first 3 homes they purchased. And now they can sell those at a $200,000 gain. When you have this kind of profiteering leading to the increased prices of homes, unfortunately, this isn't a circumstance where interest rates are gonna do much about that. And so Anna's totally right that what we need to have happen is the public sector step in, some regulation of this market, because it's not serving the people to have homes be this expensive. People are losing their homes, they're getting evicted and they're becoming homeless. And it seems that the policy solution, at least here in Los Angeles, is to criminalize homelessness, unfortunately, to make it illegal for people to be living in the streets. And so it's a really sad state of affairs.
Check out the Damage Report podcast each day, wherever you get your podcasts, whether Pocket Casts or Stitcher or iTunes. You can join me as I give you the news and stories you want, with a range of co-hosts and interview guests jumping in on the fun each day. Again, that's the Damage Report, wherever you get your podcasts. And if you get them at iTunes, don't forget to rate and review. Sometimes I'll read them live on the show.